Remember, you can get in touch with our Fearsome Foursome by emailing clubdubpodcast@mail.com and through Twitter, using the hashtag @clubdubpodcast.
Welcome to the
Club Dub Football Podcast,
where the only question is,
does your team make it into the club?
Can he get in? No, he cannot!
Hi, I'm Rob Rose, and thanks for listening to the Club Dub Football Podcast. In this episode, we'll be bringing you up to speed on all this week's NFL news that includes, but is not limited to, the release of the 2021 NFL schedule, the fact that us UK fans have the exciting prospect of games back in London for us to enjoy, and also the big quarterback news that somehow manages to involve a tight end signing for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So for all of this and more, let's throw over to JB, PB and Aldrin and get on with the show.
This your entertainment. God put me here to give y'all entertainment.
So welcome, gents.
Hi, Rob.
I'd love to say we've got an action-packed show, but that might not be entirely true. But we're going to make good chat out of a slow news week. And even if the show might be light on blockbusting NFL developments, at least, PB, I hear you've got a bit of a barnstormer for us.
Welcome to Phil's Quiz of the Week.
An absolute barnstormer, very topical for what we'll be discussing as well. Our good friend Tim Tebow, former Florida Gator. So I wonder what this week's Quiz of the Week could be around. I see Aldrin's wearing his Florida Gators t-shirt, so he's well prepared. Since 2010, the Tebow draft year, there have been 16, so including 2010, there have been 16 Florida Gators drafted into the NFL in the first round. How many of them do you think you can name? So Tebow is one of them. Give you that one for free. There's 15 others. How many do you think you can name?
2.
Only first round, yeah.
First round. We're just talking first round.
So we don't need to talk about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' new quarterback.
No.
Right.
I'm happy to wax lyrical about that, but no, we not for the purposes of this quiz. First round.
Oh, in that case, 1. Yeah, I mean, I'm putting my usual strong performance in Quiz of the Week aside because I'm still just on Tebow.
I know a few. I know a few players. I just can't remember whether they were.
Let's throw over to Rob next then. Rob, how many
first rounders?
How many others do you think you can get?
Well, I've got 2, although I must say one of them includes Tebow.
Go for it.
So I've got obviously Tebow 2010 and Kyle Pitts this year.
Yep.
James, you should know one other one.
You should probably know a few other ones, to be fair.
Well, yeah. Mike Pouncey, he was a Gator, right?
Correct.
Did he go first round?
He went first round, number 15.
So
I wonder if you can think of anyone else.
Carlos Dunlap, he was a Gator.
No, not first round.
So, right. So if Aldrin said Mike Pouncey, I'll go Maurkice Pouncey.
Correct. Same year as Tebow, 2010. He went 7 picks before.
Yeah. Now, did Jordan? I'm guessing he didn't, but Jordan Reed was a Gator.
No, not first.
I think he was like 3rd or 4th. Oh, Dante Fowler.
Dante Fowler is one. Number 3 overall, 2015.
God, I should have got Fowler.
Rob, you should get the other one. Was it same draft year?
Same draft year, number 24 overall, Arizona Cardinals.
DJ Humphries?
DJ Humphries is correct.
Ding, ding, ding.
There was another one in 2010. So Tebow, Maurkice Pouncey, but who went number 7 overall?
Oh, it was such a good year that. Isn't he a Steeler now?
He is a Steeler now.
Former Cleveland Brown?
Former Cleveland Brown, defensive back.
Joe Hayden.
Joe Hayden is correct.
That was a good year. Oh, he was so good.
You've got 7 so far.
Sorry. Can we take the past tense off that? Put some respect on that man's name. He's still good.
No, he was really good in the past. Henderson.
Henderson is correct. CJ Henderson, defensive back. 2020, pick number 9.
I'm really running out of.
The year before, someone also went to the Jags. Defensive tackle, number 29 overall.
I'm kind of running out now, I think.
Taven Bryan?
Taven Bryan is correct. I'm impressed. Was that good, to be honest?
We might see. Is he? No, he's not still there, is he? but it's that guy that went to the Falcons, Keanu Neal.
Keanu Neal, correct.
He's not still at the Falcons, though, is he? I don't think.
Number 17 overall.
For the Raiders now, isn't he?
Yeah, that's the one.
You still haven't mentioned one from this year. We know Pitts. It was the other Gator that went.
Tony, Kadarius Tony.
Kadarius Tony is correct. 2016, 11 overall.
Hargreaves.
Yeah, Vernon Hargreaves.
Hargreaves.
Yeah, I went Owen Hargreaves.
Lovey Smith. So the other ones, just to cut short.
I'm not going to get them.
In 2013, Sharif Floyd went to the Minnesota Vikings at 23 overall. Matt Elam went to the Baltimore Ravens at 32 overall. In 2014, Dominique Easley went to the New England Patriots at 29 overall. And then Jared Davis to the Detroit Lions, 21st overall in 2017. You did well, though. You got, how many did you get? 12. 12 out of 16 is not bad.
I got, 2. Oh, no, actually
Rob,
3.
Just for you then, Rob.
Hargreaves third, I'll take that.
After Tim Tebow, who is the next Florida Gators quarterback to be taken in an NFL draft? Any round?
Trask.
Kyle Trask is right. It's the first one since Tebow.
No, I need that.
Thanks for listening. That was Phil's quiz of the week.
Excellent Gators knowledge. You did have an advantage.
Yeah, I mean, I'm wearing a Florida Gators top, so I should be somewhat more educated on it. But nevertheless, that was good.
But nice work, Phil. I think Aldrin kind of takes the prize, I think, for the star turn of this week's Quiz of the Week.
I mean, if you're going to pick college football and Florida Gators, then I do have an advantage over all of you. But nonetheless, good quiz.
Next week it could be in your wheelhouse.
Nicely done.
Ole Miss players. That's what we want. Ole Miss.
I'm going to go Michael Ower. Like the paddle on a boat, Phil. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was Ole Miss. But right, guys, I mean, we've got a schedule to get to, but if we're talking all things Florida Gators and you've kicked us off with Tebow, Phil, why not stick with a bit of Tebow time and talk about, I don't know, is this big news? I mean, it feels like big news because it's Tebow, but are we going to end up building up a guy who's going to take 15 snaps next season and have 3 receptions for 60 yards? Or are we really talking about Tim Tebow essence, where this guy might finally get his opportunity to take the NFL by storm? As our Gator expert, Aldrin, I'm going to throw over to you first. Is Tebow the answer for the Jags?
Absolutely not. I don't understand. I mean, I must admit, I'm one of those people that have clamored for the return of Tebow since he stopped taking starting snaps, just for the sheer joy and fun that he brought to the game. But still, I mean, I think he's been out of the game for what was 2015, his last meaningful snaps, I feel like, something around about that. So he's been out of the game for 5 years. He's been, knocking about playing minor league baseball, and to suddenly come in and be a tight end, I don't see it. I think guys spend their whole college careers and professional careers trying to hone their skills and learn a position. I don't think you can just walk into it and make the team. Certainly, I don't think he'll make the team. Let's be honest. I think he's on the roster because of his connections to the coach, but I don't think that means that he's going to really take any meaningful role in the team. I just don't see it. It's just, I mean, if he was going to change the tight end, he needed to do it 7 or 8 years ago, didn't he? Not now, over the age of 30 and trying to come back into the pro league. So I don't get it.
It's a connection to the coach, which has kind of helped him get signed. Because did Meyer coach him at the Gators? He did, didn't he?
They were incredibly successful together.
Yeah, so I think that's part of it. But also the fact that he's a Jacksonville native, I believe, or he's from Jacksonville. So, part of it is to sell tickets. But I think it is news, Rob. Going back to your question, is it news? Is it big news? I think it is big news, but purely because of who it is. If it was, I think you'd get similar if Colin Kaepernick suddenly signed somewhere, whereas someone like Christian Hackenberg or another old quarterback like that, if they signed, I don't think it's as big of a deal because they don't have as massive of a cult following. But I don't really get the hate towards it. We'd love to see it. We're kind of in that little cult fan club kind of thing, I suppose, where, you'd love to see him come in and do well. But I don't understand the hate towards him from other fans and other people. Some people in the media have kind of spoken out about it because it's not like he's taking a position from a young tight end that would love that opportunity, because he's not going to come in and play as a tight end. I mean, what are people expecting? Well, he's not going to be a good blocker, adding to the offensive line like Gronk was in the playoffs of the Bucks, for example. He's not going to, be an athletic pass catching receiver like Darren Waller at the Raiders. That's just not. He's coming in to almost play the Taysom Hill kind of role, and it's worked effectively for the Saints. So, if he even makes the roster, let's see if it works for the Jags. But, for people saying he's taking a spot away from a young tight end, he's not. He's coming in with what they hope is a unique skill set to be able to do something, as a gadget player a little bit different. I don't genuinely believe he's coming in as an NFL, position-specific tight end.
I do get it, though. I do get it, because I know you say he's not taking a spot, but he kind of is. He's in and around the building, and I'm certain this year more than ever, there's guys that have been released. There's undrafted guys that haven't had chance to do, proper workouts for teams that would be jumping at the chance to be in that building just so that they could get in front of Urban Meyer and show him what they could do. So I do kind of get it. I don't get the hate towards Tebow, but I get the confusion at why he's been given a shot at this, at his age, at his, level of inexperience at the position that they're claiming he's going to play and all that kind of stuff. So I do understand it.
I think last year, looking at the Saints, I think Taysom Hill, in some ways, looking at some skills, was the third best quarterback on that team. So I think saying Tebow's going to come in to play that Taysom Hill role, I think is underestimating, I think, the qualities that Taysom Hill has, because Tim Tebow couldn't really throw the ball. He was, I think, a kind of a precursor to kind of that Lamar Jackson kind of player, in that, don't get me wrong, Lamar Jackson is far superior to Tim Tebow now, then, whenever. I think Tebow couldn't really run an offense. So aside from it being a bit of a gadget play and having a specific 2 or 3 plays that he can come in and do, yeah, this is probably just we'll drum up some noise. We've signed a local Jacksonville boy, sell some tickets and get some name out there. Position changes have worked in the NFL. Position changes have always worked in football. You saw the success, like Julian Edelman was a quarterback who converted to a wide receiver. Ryan Tannehill, I think, went the other way around. He was a wide receiver that ended up playing quarterback. Talking specifically about this, Logan Thomas at the Washington football team came into the league drafted by the Arizona Cardinals as a quarterback, and he made the move over to tight end, I think in 2000 for the 2018 season, and it wasn't until last season with the football team that he actually kind of had his breakout season, 72 catches. I can't see Tebow putting up that kind of production. I think this is not meant as maliciously as this can sometimes be. This is a publicity stunt, and that's kind of it.
I'm so aligned with your points, JB. Some of my conclusions are a bit different. So let's come back to Phil's point. Not every tight end is Rob Gronkowski. So if we're looking at where Tim Tebow needs to be a value to the Jacksonville Jaguars, it's not at a Gronkowski level, is it? It's as a functional player. And I think Logan Thomas actually at Washington is a great comparison. The other thing really for me, and the story about the romance of this kind of signing, is that you've nailed it, JB. I think a lot of fans, me included, maybe all of us included, felt that Tebow came before the NFL was ready. I mean, you say he couldn't throw. I mean, he could. I mean, he threw the most beautiful rainbow in overtime against the Steelers, actually, in that playoff game for Denver. But what you never had was a coach that was absolutely prepared to build around Tebow's skill set the way that, the Ravens have with Lamar Jackson. Now, I'm with you. Tebow's not Lamar Jackson, but he played second fiddle in New York when he went to the Jets. He was a short yardage, red zone kind of threat. And actually, I thought quite an interesting and usable red zone threat. He then had time on, the Eagles, was it? And then the Patriots, I think, in preseason, and never really stuck. And the real pity of that is, if you believe the stories that bounce around Twitter, there was a time before he went to the New York Jets where the team who wanted him as their starting quarterback and were prepared to build around him were the Jacksonville Jaguars. At the time, Tebow wanted big franchise, big opportunity, and he found himself in the Big Apple. But do you know what? Let's come back to that skill set. Physical, great in short yardage, a really good football brain, I think, with Tebow, and somebody who can bring something different. If he'd have landed in New Orleans instead of Taysom Hill, I think we might be talking about a very different NFL career for Tim Tebow anyway. And who knows? I mean, if he comes in short yardage situations for Jacksonville next season and notches up, 3 or 4 touchdowns, maybe, 250 yards receiving next year, that'll put him above a lot of tight ends in the league. I think you are right in the sense that the problem is the expectation will always be higher when your name is Tim Tebow. But I mean, that guy, I think, deserves an opportunity. I think the way that we probably talk about Kaepernick maybe deserving some form of opportunity as well. It's come in weird circumstances, but good luck to the guy is probably my takeaway. I would love him to stick. I would love this to have something like a fairy tale ending for Tebow. And actually, Urban Meyer's maybe not as crazy as people think when he's got a rookie quarterback coming in with a huge amount of media frenzy around him. And who does he pick to sit in that locker room with him but Tim Tebow? I think there's probably more going on there than we might think. I would just love him to make it and to make a success of his time there.
We'd all love to be sat in Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in October, going crazy after Tim Tebow does something ridiculous to score a touchdown or something like that. The place would go nuts. So, yeah, I think I'm well on board with that. Good luck to him.
So do you know what, Phil? Occasionally you provide the ultimate podcasting segue. So let's roll with that, right? The NFL this week made a huge song and dance about the fact next season, everybody, teams will be playing each other. Who knew? And some of those games will be at home, and some will be on the road, and some will be on a Sunday, and so on and so forth. And I kind of struggle with some of the hoo-ha around the schedule release. I think when the Premier League do it over here in England, they release it one morning and it ends up on the BBC Sport website for an afternoon. It has a slightly different level of fanfare this side of the pond. However, let's focus on the Tottenham games, right? I was absolutely distraught, having never missed a UK NFL game, to have not had one last year. It felt like a gaping hole. And do you know what? Let's follow your train of thought. Tim Tebow scoring a touchdown, making things happen at a game in October. So do you know what? Let's start here. Of the 4 teams that are coming over, Phil, who are you most excited to see and why? And I'm not going to change your mind if it's Jacksonville and Tim Tebow, but who are you looking forward to see of the 4 we've got?
I think they all pose something interesting to watch, don't they? I'd say of the 4, I'm probably least excited about seeing the Jets. They're not I don't think they're a sexy franchise at the moment. All right, they've just, got the number 2 pick and, got a brand new quarterback that's got a lot less fanfare than
Trevor Lawrence.
Jesus, I could remember Lawrence. I can't remember his first name.
The guy that's been touted as the number 1 NFL draft pick for about 10 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Started high school, but you can't remember. Don't worry, Sean.
Jets are probably 4th on the list, I'd say. But I think they all pose interesting. It's 4 of the top 6 picks from this year we're going to see in London. So they're not teams that have had great records. The Dolphins maybe aside, who were almost a playoff team. But I think they're set up to be some exciting games. So, if Tebow sticks, it will be good to watch the Jags. And obviously they've got Trevor Lawrence. So that's, and Etienne. So that's going to be quite interesting. The Falcons as well. Kyle Pitts, probably arguably the most talented player in the draft this year. He's going to be fun to watch. Matty Ryan's always good value through the air. So, I think the last time the Falcons came over was the Lions game, where it was settled on the last kick of the game. So they provided an exciting game, and you'd hope to see the same here. And then you've obviously got the Dolphins as well, who are a reasonably strong team. unlucky maybe to miss out on the playoffs last year. All right, we don't know what Tua is going to be like, for a full season, but I think they're going to be a fun watch as well. So the Falcons will be an interesting watch, but maybe not the team I can pick. So I'd say I think it would be the Jags. It'll be interesting to see what they can do. Good running attack, exciting quarterback. So I'll say the Jags. London's team.
So just for reference, Phil was asked for which team and kind of went through a thing that was essentially everyone except the Jets.
I'll allow it. I'll allow it.
I think that's fair.
I think it is a weird one, though. I mean, all credits for... I mean, considering we've got 4 teams, we've got, 3 of them with relatively new quarterbacks. 2 are in second year, the other 2 rookies. 3 of the teams coming over with a new head coach. There's an awful lot that we might see. I mean... It's one of those weird ones where I think it's probably more likely that we see 3 teams that are, battling in the NFL basement next year rather than 3 of those 4 teams being a playoff contender. I think the Dolphins maybe being my exception. But that doesn't always lead to, unentertaining games of football. Sometimes bad teams can put on a really good show. And do you know what? We haven't seen a big point-scoring game in London for quite a few years. I'd love an absolute blowout. And I think that Dolphins game has got that written all over it.
I disagree. I don't think we want to see a blowout. Seeing a team lose 42-7 or whatever. The one I instantly think of is when the Ravens came over and got absolutely smashed.
Hang on. You were referring to JB's absolute favourite game of American football that he's ever witnessed in person, ever.
I was going to say as well, also, don't forget that the reason Rob wants to see a blowout is because the last blowout we saw involved his beloved Arizona Cardinals getting murdered.
That's a fair point by the Rams, I guess. Carson Palmer's last ever game. We were there.
Yeah. Well, we missed a 20-yard field goal on the first drive and then failed to score a single point in that whole game. Please move on.
I do want to see offense, though, and I'd love to see, an absolute back-and-forth shootout, 56-49 or something like that. I'm not working out the points in my head.
Well, I was going to say, if you think about the teams that are coming over, all of them have weaknesses in defense from last year. Like Atlanta was still putting up good points on offense and couldn't stop anything. The Jags are perennially just poor on defense, and so are the Jets. Miami aren't the strongest there. So I think you've got that kind of melting pot for those types of games that are just points back and forth galore almost, because you've now got, like you said, Phil, 4 of the top 6 picks in this draft, and they were all offensive players that we're going to see. So I think you've got the potential to see some exciting new young talent.
From my point of view, I think the Dolphins are kind of the team that I'm looking forward to seeing the most. And for 2 reasons. One, because I think they are set up to be the best of the 4 teams. I think they were... The argument will be made, I think, that they performed over and above expectations and potentially over and above realities of that team last season. But I think that just says, well, hang on a minute. If Brian Flores and the coaching staff that he's put together can get that good of a performance out of a team that people were a bit unsure about, now having a season to not only bed in those players, but add in the off-season, the free agents they've added in, the draft picks, which I think the Dolphins had one of the better drafts out of all of the teams. How good is that team going to be now? Part of it is just because I would just really like to see a really good Miami Dolphins team, because even before I was a fan of the NFL, before I'd watched my first game, the Dolphins were still a team that I knew. Like you said, who are the Miami Dolphins? Oh, they're an NFL team. Yes, the Bears. Yeah, I could probably tell you the 49ers and the Cowboys, but that would be about it. The Dolphins were one of those few that I think penetrate kind of outside of the NFL and just hit into that kind of bit where they are a known franchise everywhere. They're the only undefeated franchise ever. And there's a lot in there that kind of just makes you think, oh, it'd be good if the Dolphins just had a good season.
Yeah, being the guy who was probably following the NFL earliest of the 4 of us, with being effectively a child of the 80s, watching that Channel 4 coverage back in the day, you're absolutely right. I mean, Dan Marino and the Dolphins were box office, just like Montana and the 49ers and the Bears during the mid-80s, particularly Cowboys as well. But I'm with you. I think the nice thing about seeing the Dolphins is they're kind of the blueprint for the other three teams. You know, what you want a new head coach to do, what you want a new quarterback to do, which is the trajectory, particularly that the Jets and the Jags are on. And the other element here about the Dolphins is, you know, we talked last week about the Titans, and I was creating the argument that maybe the Eagles are going to join them, you know, in the real depths of the NFL. You know, when you don't cast your mind back all that far to a few years ago when Adam Gase was leaving Miami, that franchise was in a real mess. You know, that franchise could have been another couple of head coaches in quick succession away from total meltdown. And now look at them. I mean, they are a solid defense. They're an exciting offense. They've added playmakers because they had some great draft capital. I'm with you. I think to watch, I think the Dolphins have the potential to be the most exciting. And do you know what? I'm gonna say something for the Jets. I think as bad as they were on defense last year, they went and got Salah as their head coach, which says everything you need to know about their intention to improve in that side of the game. So do you know what? Competitive it might be. Fun, I think we're almost guaranteed. And of all the slates of games we've had in recent years, I think, like you say, that potential for back and forth, that potential for superstar players to make great things happen means we could end up with two really good games.
On the fun note, I think, aside from which team I'm most looking forward to, one of my favourite non-Buccaneers is coming over. And if I had to pick a moment that a moment that I would love to see, it would be Cordarrelle Patterson, who's signed for the Falcons, getting a kick, you know, in the end zone and just returning it the whole way for a touchdown, taking it to the house. I would go absolutely nuts. He's so exciting to watch. So, yeah, if I could pick any moment for the London games this year, it'd be that.
I think the only thing that would have me rooting against that would be we'd be there live, so we wouldn't get that great camera angle that they got of his one last season. Just incredible. I think Rob, to sort of go back to something I think it was Rob said earlier, we've seen exciting teams come over and not have exciting games, and we've seen underperforming teams come over and have a really good one. Again, I still really liked that Bills Jags game that we saw when both teams were kind of on a bit of a dip, and I think the Bills turned it over.
What do you mean a dip? EJ Manuel had the game of his life, didn't he?
I think didn't
Three
he
picks in 3 minutes.
No, I thought it was he fumbled, then he got intercepted, and then someone else fumbled. It was like back to back to back.
So he fumbled, intercepted, and then fumbled again.
Yeah,
and all of them resulted in 6 points for the Jags.
But yeah, I think we've got 4 teams coming over who have all got the potential for this to be kind of a great step forward season. I think the Jets made the right decision, I think, with picking Wilson. The Jags, we've already talked about picking Lawrence. Yes, Matty Ice is the oldest of them by a considerable amount. Sorry, Matt. But
the best.
We're talking about former league MVP. And a guy that the Falcons have said, okay, we need to get this guy some more people to throw at. What's that? Kyle Pitts is available at our pick. Probably better pick him then, which of course all of us saw coming. I'm just excited for it. It's like Rob, I really missed the fact that we couldn't go to a game last year. I love the atmosphere of it, the fact that it's something that we can all do together, the crowd, the game. And this is coming from, I think, the guy on our podcast who is most likely to never, ever want to go outside and interact with people, ever.
The only thing for me is, I think you're right. Like, we've got some exciting quarterbacks. I think the weird thing for me is Miami, like you said, James, they're such a storied franchise and you do want to see them do well. And it's nice to have them back in the kind of arena where they are competing. Like Rob said, when they were under Adam Gase, they were a bit of a joke and it was just all over the shop. I think the only thing for me with them is it's interesting. The most interesting story of that is how Tua plays this year, because I think I really wasn't sold on him last year. And, I might be proven wrong and he might be amazing after a full off season and what have you. But I think, we saw Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert kind of take centre stage and perform pretty well. I think Herbert played phenomenally well, and Burrow looked like a fairly solid starter. But Tua just seemed a bit nervy, a bit indecisive. Obviously, he's a lefty, so that changes the dynamic of the line a little bit. And your blindside protector's now the right tackle rather than left, and that it just changes how things work. But they had an opportunity at what were they picking 6 this year? Was it? I think it was. They had an opportunity where they had at that pick the opportunity to pick, say, Justin Fields at that spot if they'd wanted to. And I think it was a really good show of confidence from the franchise. And clearly, they see something more than we probably do in Tua, and must be very confident in deciding to surround him with more talent and let him do his thing. So that's the more interesting storyline for me in seeing the Miami Dolphins this year, because I think you're right, James. They've gone out and got some really good free agents. They've done really well in the draft and picked up some phenomenal players, particularly in the later rounds. I think they did a really good job of, picking up players that could have been drafted higher and fell to them nicely. So I do think they've done really well. So they'll be the interesting one to see if they can now live up to that potential, and if Tua is that guy, or if, as we kind of were led to believe maybe a few months ago before, the whole news stories about Deshaun Watson broke, but they were the team that were rumoured alongside the Jets to be the most interested in trading for Deshaun Watson. So, I think that's just the interest and intrigue of the Miami Dolphins for me this year. I think we go in looking at some amazing quarterbacks, really. Like you say, Matty Ice is always money. You're going to see Trevor Lawrence, who, I'm really excited to see him. I've seen him play in college, and it's been so hyped. I'm fascinated to see how it translates to the NFL level, and if he does come in and have the kind of the immediate impact and success that somebody like Andrew Luck had when he was hyped in the same sort of way. So yeah, we've got some fascinating quarterbacks coming in. We've got some fascinating offenses. So I think all of them are going to be good. They're exciting games to watch, and all of them. I think the Jags are, perpetually fascinating. Like you said, James, one of the best games we've seen, it has been with the Jags involved, when they've come over. And I think they're always good for putting on a decent show. The mascot antics at the start of the game are always great. And now they've got a really kind of true generational quarterback, or so we're led to believe. It'll be fascinating to see, them as a franchise. I think we're all keen to get behind them and see them do well, because the most likely team that's going to be over here that we're going to be watching for years to come in the future. And, the potential of the franchise coming over here, maybe we're all going to be kind of part-time Jags fans, I would assume.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see them do well, isn't it?
I think even without him having taken a snap or thrown a pass in the NFL, I think Trevor Lawrence has to be considered the best quarterback that we would have ever seen the Jags with. And that is, of course, with the utmost respect to the
podcast favorite.
Yeah, the original quarterback apple of Phil's eye, big bad Blake Bortles.
New Green Bay starting quarterback.
Green Bay, yeah. I told you. Maybe Gutenkutz, or whatever his name is, I probably just butchered it. The GM of the Packers was listening to our podcast number 2. Who knows? But Blakey B, my guy.
Brian, if you're listening to this, please consider trading Aaron Rodgers to the Pittsburgh Steelers for a 7th round pick and some sandwiches.
Yeah, conditional 7th rounder, right?
I suppose it's worth touching on Rodgers, isn't it? I mean, who knows what's going on with that situation? It's still unresolved. They're still talking as if. I watched Good Morning Football earlier, and they had the directors of planning and scheduling, obviously talking about the newly released NFL schedule, and it was all about planning for the situation and not knowing what was going on with Rodgers. So even the kind of NFL executives are talking as if it's a legitimate possibility that he gets traded, he just doesn't play, he retires and goes and hosts Jeopardy. It's God knows what's going to happen. It's all a bit weird. Also, on the player moves note, I suppose, is a bit of a news roundup. on the Falcons schedule release image that they had, they obviously had all their key players. You got Younghoe Koo, Matty Ryan, Calvin Ridley. I don't think Pitts was on there, but most notably missing was Julio Jones. Now, there was obviously a bit of trade talk about him before the draft, and they were going to wait until, I can't remember when it is, it maybe is June, where he cost less on the cap, less against the cap for them. But the fact they've not included him in their, schedule release material kind of points to, well, maybe they are actively looking to trade him. So that's going to be an interesting one to watch as well.
It's weird, isn't it? I mean, I think back to your point of the Packers GM, I think if he is the guy that trades away Aaron Rodgers, I don't think he'll be the Packers GM for too much longer. Let's put it that way.
He's done as many seasons, I think, as Brett Favre, and as many seasons as the guy, their other, I can't remember the guy's name, their other kind of massive stellar star name quarterback.
Bart
Starr, sorry, that's it. They've
former quiz answer, Bart Starr.
And they've all done the same amount of seasons. None of them, no Green Bay quarterback has ever done more. So it'll be interesting to see if he does stay or, if it's some sort of Green Bay quarterback curse.
Well, as we said, coming full circle, they're very well set up now to fill an Aaron Rodgers shaped hole by taking, previous first round level talent, Blake Bortles.
Well, you mock Blake Bortles, but
Yes, I do.
Let's have a look. I'll give you a bit of quiz knowledge for free here. Who has the most playoff wins?
Tom Brady.
Like ever. Yeah, it's not Blake Bortles.
I was going to say, if you're not going to finish that question quick, Phil, you're running out of Blake Bortles answers.
Page is loaded.
And thought, I think it's like the most playoff wins since Bortles was drafted. Blake Bortles or Aaron Rodgers. It's a tie. They've both got 2 wins. So, it's...
Brilliant stats. Yeah, no, you're right. Blake Bortles is much better than Aaron Rodgers.
But the thing,
MVP, future Hall of Famer Aaron Rodgers.
But the thing is, Phil, contained within Phil's quiz information there is a worthwhile nugget to discuss. And it's the fact that we know where those 2 Blake Bortles wins came from. And it was from that season where they made it to the AFC Championship game. And they were legitimately close to beating the Patriots. Aaron Rodgers should have so many more playoff wins than that. Aaron Rodgers should legitimately have another Super Bowl to go with it. And it is kind of an indictment of the Packers that they haven't put a better team around him. So from Rodgers' point, even if they kind of give you a bit of extra money, is it worth staying if they're not going to do something about the team around him?
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's got plenty of talent on offense to work with, hasn't he? I don't think I'd feel too bad for him. I think there's a lot of quarterbacks in worse positions. So I don't feel too sorry for MVP.
One of the guys who might end up throwing to Julio Jones as well
yeah, exactly.
If he does go somewhere. You've got to look at potential landing spots for superstar wide receivers, and you've got to think Aaron Rodgers would be pretty happy with Julio lining up with 11 on his back in yellow and green.
But then, they've got Devontae Adams, don't they? So I suppose they've not got a great deal after that.
Yes, we don't need another superstar receiver. We already have one. Who on earth needs 2? No, but I can understand where Phil's coming from, because obviously the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won the Super Bowl last year with not really very good. Like, they didn't have a lot receiver. They're just some guy called Mike, some quick guy, someone they brought in off the street called Tony something.
Yeah, I mean, but ultimately you are forgetting Chris Godwin's more of a blocker, really. I mean, he's not a receiver in the truest sense of the word.
That's what you pay him, top $18 million a year.
I said they would tag Godwin and you mocked me, and there we go.
And I still think it's a stupid decision, but there you go. Why are you taking him out, or is he blocking for you?
Super Bowl ordering.
I thought he was just blocking
after
for you.
the Super Bowl. Nice, good Super Bowl knowledge.
So
4 teams that we're in a weird way excited to see. Excited just at the thought of the NFL being played in London again. I did wonder how long it would take. It felt like there was that momentum and all those conversations about would we ever get, our franchise. But like you say, Aldrin, even if a global pandemic is enough to probably kick that can of does London get a franchise, probably, 5 or 10 years down the road, it does feel like the Jags are going to be our perennial number 2 team for a while, doesn't it? Wouldn't it be great if Trevor Lawrence does live up to expectations and he's rolling into either the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium or Wembley every 12 months to put on a show? I think that would be something pretty special, actually, for UK fans and hopefully for the Jags as well. Anyway, Phil, congratulations on what I thought was a stellar quiz of the week.
Yeah,
Aldrin, congratulations on having a level of Florida Gator knowledge that didn't make us all slightly embarrassed to be the hosts and contributors to Ultimately an American Football podcast. JB, your insight and historical view of all things NFL continues to amaze, astound and entertain. But no, I think considering a quiet week, isn't it nice to have the London games announced this week? I think without it, I think it would have not quite had the sparkle. Hopefully as well, I mean, I know this season is our first with 17 regular season games. Let's hope that in a year's time, that means we might even get more teams coming over for international series games here. And the talk is maybe Germany. I'm sure Mexico will be involved in more and more as time goes on. And we get to play our little part in spreading the word about the great product that is the NFL and turning it into a truly global concern. But gentlemen, we'll be back in 7 days, hopefully, with the news that finally settles once and for all who will be the starting quarterback in Green Bay. Will Deshaun Watson ever be tradable again? And all the news around Fisher and Schwartz that any NFL podcast could ever want to mention. And
we didn't touch on it, did we? Of course, Fisher now having signed for the Colts, Aldrin's team.
So
let's do it then. Aldrin, what are your thoughts on having Fisher but not Schwartz?
Sorry, can we just clarify which Fisher it is that we're talking about? Because obviously there are multiple across NFL history.
I think you'll find it's left tackle Eric Fisher. And I'm really chuffed. I think we talked about it last week after the kind of draftermath of us not picking up a left tackle. And, I think we'd kind of said there wasn't really anybody that we were, falling in love with in the draft that fell to us that we were interested in. Ultimately, I think we've got, the guy was the first overall pick a few years ago and hopefully solves our left tackle problem. I think the interesting thing for me as well is that the other kind of notable left tackle, the Chicago Bears guy, Leno Jr., he got picked up later on this week as well by the Washington football team, I think. And they were the guys that probably drafted the left tackle we'd been rumored to be interested in, Sam Cosmi from Texas. So I think that in itself maybe says enough about what kind of caliber of player, what's available, where we were looking. If Sam Cosmi is ultimately now he's going to sit behind Leno Jr. because Leno is an 8-year veteran. I think he's played every snap for the Chicago Bears for the last few years. So I think that kind of indicates that Sam Cosmi is probably going to sit for a year behind him. So yeah, I'm not too disappointed in the players that we maybe passed on or didn't go aggressive and get, because I think now we've got a potential Pro Bowl left tackle. So I'm pretty happy, really.
But gents, your company is always a treat and a pleasure. Should we come back in 7 days and do it all again?
Absolutely.
Beautiful. Thanks ever so much. See you all soon.
Stay safe.
Bye.
This is amazing. Woo!
Remember to subscribe
And be cool. Tell your friends.
The game is over. The game is over.
Slow news week.